So many of you know that a child with autism typically has some sensory needs. They can become overstimulated or they are understimulated and crave that. And it affects all of our senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, hearing, everything. But like autism, when it comes to the sensory processing disorder piece, no two children are the same. What affects one child isn't going to affect another, and vice versa. And there are many children who actually don't have the autism diagnosis who do have a sensory processing disorder diagnosis. And this can make life really, really difficult. There are children who are sensitive to sound. For instance, my youngest son hates loud sounds. We have noise-canceling earmuffs, much of what's used like at a shooting range, that he wears if there's going to be an extreme amount of sound. You know, if we go to a hockey game or a basketball game, parades oftentimes can be loud. He will wear those. Movie theaters, he will wear them throughout the entire movie. He also will wear them to go to bed at night because he has problems with listening to the sound of traffic that he can hear through his bedroom windows. There are kids who have issues with clothing. It could be something simple like removing the tags out of all the back of your shirts, which a lot of us do, right? But some kids will only wear a specific kind of clothing. The same son that I had that had noise issues had clothing issues and would only wear sweatpants or jogging pants. He would not wear anything denim. We have finally gotten him to kind of outgrow that. He still prefers jogging pants or sweatpants, but he will now wear jeans, which is nice. He was a child who, when he was younger, would strip down to nothing. And we've taught him that he needed to at least wear his underwear. And as he got older, we transitioned his underwear from just plain old underwear to boxer shorts. So it was a little more acceptable for him to be running around in his underwear. And at 10, he still does that often. He's clearly my sensory child because he has issues with food. He does not eat mashed potatoes, pudding, Cool Whip, frosting, any kind of meat. And it comes down to a texture thing. And it's clear as day. He has finally branched out and he'll eat yogurt and Jell-O. But, you know, when it comes to anything with that consistency, getting him to try those things is slim to none. So, you know, I know we've discussed in the past having some tolerance when people are out in public, but that's something that a lot of people don't take into account is the sensory stimulation from one place to the next. The grocery store can be a complete disaster with the different sounds, the different smells, the different temperature changes from the freezer section to the regular section. Many stores, the floor changes. You know, the produce always seems to be more bumpy than, you go to a store. At least here, our local stores, the produce have like a brick feel to them. You can feel that bouncing on the cart or when you're walking on your feet. But throw into that all the sounds of all the carts, the sounds of the cash registers, the sounds of all the people, the opening and the closing of the freezers. A lot of these things can really, really mess with a child who has sensory issues. The same thing can be said about the smells. You know, you go to many grocery stores anymore and they have delis that cook. Well, sometimes those different scents, along with all the sounds and the feelings and the temperature changes and the lights humming, can really be prime location for a child to have a meltdown. The same thing can be said for restaurants. You've got different foods being cooked all the time, different people talking all the time, the clanking of silverware and the drinks and the sounds of everything around you. And these kinds of places can be very, very difficult, not just for a child with autism, but a child with sensory processing disorder. I've heard people say that it's not real. It is. It's very, very real. Here's what I want you to do to kind of have an understanding of how a sensory overload can really, really bother you. I want you to turn on a fan and have it oscillating and blowing. And I want you and somebody that you're with to do this together. One of you sit on the floor with a piece of paper with a straight line drawn on it and a marble. Set the marble on that line to show you how easy it is to be overstimulated when your senses are magnified. This is what this is going to do. The person that's on the floor, your sole job is to keep that marble on that line. While you do that, the other person that's with you is going to give you a spelling test. Simple words. But while they're giving that spelling test, things are going to be happening. A radio may turn on. They may have musical instruments or clap their hands or make some noises that way. The fan is oscillating. They may turn their back. They may cough. But while they're giving you these spelling tests, they're also going to be pulling your paper so that your marble rolls away. So you're going to have to get your marble and put it back on the line. This is exactly what it's like for a child with sensory issues. You're going to be so frustrated by the time you're done because you're going to have missed silly words that you knew how to spell. You might not even hear the word being said at all because you're going to be concentrating on that marble. And the person that's sabotaging you, as you feel, is setting you up for failure. Well, even though that might not be the case, that's what a child with sensory issues feels like. They're out of control. They can hear everything, they can see everything, they can taste or smell everything. And I understand that what I'm proposing to you is extreme for a typical developing person. You know, chances are all of those things aren't going to happen at one given time, but they can. And with a child who can't shut off their sensory system, they may hear the lawnmower outside and the weed eater on the other side, or the leaf blower because the people are outside working on the grounds at the school. They may hear the hum of the fluorescent lights. They may hear kids in the hallway. They may smell lunch cooking. You know, they may be uncomfortable because the sun is shining in the window and they don't like the feel of the heat on their skin. Or vice versa, it may be cold and dreary outside and that makes them feel down. They might hear the scratching of the pencil to the kid next to them, or the clicking of the pen that somebody's doing behind a desk that everybody does. They might be so caught up with the shaking of their neighbor's foot. We all bounce, we all shake. What about the tapping of a pencil? Or someone's chewing gum, so they're popping their bubbles. All of these things can happen at any given time and in one classroom. Imagine a child who can't shut that off. That is what sensory processing disorder and oftentimes autism can do. So if you notice someone around you is completely preoccupied with things that the rest of us seem to be able to just kind of ignore or shut off or let go into the background, understand that that's not the possibility for a kid like this. So just try to have some understanding. Try to help if you can. You know, if you notice somebody getting really frustrated and you're sitting there clicking your pen, how hard is it to stop? You know, have some understanding that they might not have control over that. I know it seems petty. I know we all think, well, if I want to do it, I'll do it. But if we stopped and thought about the effect it's going to have on somebody who cannot help the way that it affects them, then we might be doing more for them than we realize. So I encourage you to go out and research, look up sensory processing disorder. There's so much more to it than what I mentioned. It affects people in many, many different ways. It's much like autism in that aspect. You can have sensory processing disorder without autism. You can have autism without sensory processing disorder. And you can have them both together. It's a legitimate disability, and it's something that I encourage those of you specifically working with children, especially children with special needs, learn about it. Teach yourself a little something. It may help you in the long run because I'm pretty sure you're going to run into a kiddo who has some sensory needs, even if they're not diagnosed.